Lokati here, and I think I've got a treat for you. This is a Fireball Witch. Plain and simple. We've got a few shenanigans going on, but we're going to do a T4 Breachstone here with our trusty Hellhound companion. Go over the build, a couple things real quick before we get started. This is a Demon Form Infernalist Witch. We are using Mask of the Stitched Demon to go into Demon Form and then equip it so that we can maintain the regeneration on it while still having Energy Shield. That is something that is likely going to be fixed at some point in time in the future, but in the meantime, we're going to have fun with it. Outside of that, we are running ARCHMAGE with Fireball, Infernal Hound, Demon Form, Conductivity, Frostwall, and Mana Tempest. So this is what we're going to be using to play. Demon Form does have Demon Flames that have to stack up before you start doing damage, but we do pretty solid damage like right out the gate, and so we don't really have to wait for them to stack up for the map itself, but you will get stronger the longer you're in the map. The regeneration from Stitch Demon Mask at 1,000 life per second is enough to keep us up to 400-ish stacks, even inside Mana Tempest, which costs life per second to use. And so we're pretty comfy in most any map, but if you're going to do a map that's going to take longer than like 6 or 7 minutes, you may not be able to sustain that long. Which is pretty mobile. We've only got like 25% movement speed boots on her right now, but you can just dash through everything pretty quickly. And so like just getting behind on the breach right here because we were back there talking about stuff, but we can quickly get up here and kill all the stuff on the way. We are using Conductivity as our curse because the majority of our damage is coming from lightning, and so we are doing a whole lot of shocks. We don't have anything for scaling shocks right now, but that is something that you could add to the build. Most of our jewels are actually for survivability because the goal of this was to make a very tanky witch. So as you can see, I mean, we can literally just let everything hit us in the face and we're going to be fine. Coming up here onto Xesht, I've got another video that I'll kind of clip in at the end of this where we just face tank Xesht's attacks the whole time. But for this one, we're going to see how quickly we can kills him. So you're going to sit inside your Mana Tempest. If you need to move, you need to move, but then you can put your Mana Tempest back down. We're going to put our curse on the ground, throw some ice walls out there, and then blow them up. And this is at 183 stacks of our Demon Flames, so that's just kind of what it's going to be at every time you encounter him. Because that's the exact same amount of time it takes to get through the dungeon anyway. And we'll just kind of tank arms to the face here. And Xesht dead. Very nice, very tanky, good DPS, good clear. Scales longer, scales more the longer you're in the dungeon. You do need to take that in consideration. If your gear is a little light, go read trade for a little bit, look for some items, maybe watch a little video for 30 seconds before you start the dungeon. You can just sit in demon form and let it scale up. I said, at our current regeneration rate, we can maintain about 400 to 500 stacks sitting inside our Mana Tempest, which has a life cost of 52.18 life per second. And that ends up being a very, very solid basis of all our defenses. We do have Zealot's Oath, so that our excess life recovery goes over to our energy shield. So early on in the dungeon, whenever you are playing and your damage is lower and things are hitting you more, you also have less demon flame stacks, which means you're taking less damage, and you have more overflow from life recovery and regeneration into your energy shield. So you are tankier earlier in the dungeon, and then you do way more damage later in the dungeon. So it's like a little ebb and flow for the build to get a feel for how everything runs. We're running 85% fire res on this build, 76% cold and lightning, 75% chaos. This combined with Hellhound and our Ascendancy node, Altered Flesh, makes us incredibly tanky. And then we have another 562 mana per second on our mana recovery. So if we're taking hits, we can literally drink a mana potion for hits, or we can move around and stop casting and let our mana recover. And so we ended up having, 440 life, plus 8,800 energy shield, plus 3,100 mana, and then a total recovery between everything of somewhere between 500 and 1,500, depending on where you are in the dungeon. And so a nice little kit for the build. We'll go over our gems again here. We're running Demon Form with Second Wind. We're running Hellhound with Last Gasp, Meat Shield, Minion Mastery, Fire Exposure, and Wildfire. We're running Fireball with Unleash, Inspiration, Scattershot, Wild Shards, and Arcane Tempo. We have nothing linked on ARCHMAGE right now, but you could get a level 20 ARCHMAGE and move your Lightning Mastery from Mana Tempest up to ARCHMAGE to turn this into a higher percentage. That would take it from 8% to 9%, I believe. We are running Conductivity with Heightened Curse, Focus Curse, and Cursed Ground. You don't have to use Cursed Ground if you don't want to. It's just the playstyle that I like. Frostwall, we are running Spell Cascade, considered casting, Ingenuity, and Lightning Exposure. And Mana Tempest, we are running Life Tap, Premeditation, Murderous Intent, and Lightning Mastery. For our passive tree, we're moving up the tree to gain Pure Energy and Mana Blessing. We're moving up and gaining Arcane Blossom. We're taking this whole wheel with Illuminated Crown, Hallowed, and Heavy Buffer. We're moving down here to get Full Recovery, Spiral into Depression, and Resilient Soul. Moving over here for Zealot's Oath and Aspiring Genius, and taking this extra jewel node over here, which we have put an Unwavering Stance or Bulwark Diamond, which lets us jump down here and take Hail Heart and all the life regen nodes around it. We are taking Touch of the Arcane and Aspiring Genius with all the crit on Arcane Surge on crit nodes, because we are not, unfortunately, a Storm Weaver, and so we do not have permanent Arcane Surge uptime. Arcane Surge is very powerful for the build, so we do want to take those, and we're going to get a little bit of crit here, and we're going to scale up a little bit more crit here so that we have a higher chance to crit. On our Ascendancy tree, we're also taking this mini crit node here and this mini mana node here, because these nodes are virtually worthless for us. And then, of course, we're taking Altered Flesh, Demonic Possession, and Loyal Hellhound. On our passive tree, we also go up here for Enhanced Barrier, Ingenuity, Patient Barrier, and Arcane Intensity, Raw Mana, and Ether Flow. Ether Flow is... it's good and it's not good. Like, when we're standing still, pumping out spells is probably when we need the regeneration the most, rather than when we're moving. But if we're running away from something, then having the extra mana regeneration helps our recovery over here in case we're taking too much damage. You can take this or leave this one. This is an opinion one, so you can go either way on this. These nodes can come down here and get mana regen on the tree down here if you want to get mana regen that was consistent up all of the time. Could do that as well. For our items, we are running a Mask of the Stitched Demon. I did talk about how to utilize this. You have to be outside of demon form with the mask unequipped, and then you go into demon form, and you'll notice you have energy shield, and then the mask equipped will give you the regeneration from having maximum energy shield. But demon form snapshots your energy shield where it was whenever you switch demon form. You can see we equip the mask, but we don't gain this energy shield because it snapshots our ES over here. Now, this snapshotting is something that's not very uncommon in ARPGs in a lot of situations. And so it may be something that GGG fixes. If they don't fix it, this does give us a nice solution. In the event that this does get nerfed, the changes that we would make to the build are we would no longer use an Azure Gaze amulet, and we would no longer use the Mask of the Stitch Demon. We would instead equip a 400 ES helmet with regen on it, equip an amulet with regen on it and other favorable stats, and we would get regen on our other nodes as we can. And then we would be able to maintain about 300 to 350 stacks instead of 500 plus stacks. And we would probably need to consider wearing a Mings, and maybe Ingenuity loses some value so that we can maintain stacks better. The build would still be playable, but this is just super convenient, easy, and budget way to get all of our regen without having to min-max regeneration on all of our pieces here. On our body armor, we are using a Ghost Writhe with the highest life conversion that we can get, as well as good res. On our rings, we're looking for mana, cast speed, mana regeneration, resistances. I mean, the same stuff that every caster is looking for on their rings. I'm using an Ingenuity belt right here. If you don't have one, you can just use a Tri-Res belt and then get better stats on your rings. On our boots, we're looking for move speed, mana, and resistances. On our gloves, we're looking for mana and resistances. So that's how you're going to set up your gear. One of the perks of playing a witch is you don't get to use weapons, which means you ain't got a budget for weapons. That does give us a nice advantage on making this build much cheaper, because a 40 or a 50 div Stormweaver wand is not something that we have to be concerned with. Now, if you have any questions over any of this, please feel free to leave a comment down below or come by YouTube, and I'm happy to answer those questions. Thank you very much for watching. Y'all have a wonderful day. Peace.